Yesterday, you learned how to write your introduction for your National Geographic exploration story. Today, we're going to move on to our first body paragraph, but let's start by recapping our introduction from yesterday. Did you know that California's Central Valley provides the United States with 13% of its crops and 20% of its groundwater? I learned this on the most amazing adventure of my life. Now, to start the next paragraph, even though we haven't filled up this entire line here, we are going to skip down to the next line and indent our next paragraph. So I'm going to put a dot there to remind me that that's where I'm going to start my writing. Now, before we can move on, today we're supposed to be writing about our landforms and our bodies of water. So I'm going to refer to the circle map that we made a few days ago. So some of the things about the Central Valley that I wrote down, the coolest thing is I put that it's sandwiched, the Central Valley is sandwiched between the coastal mountains and the Sierra Nevadas. So all I keep thinking about is a Central Valley sandwich with mountains as the bread and Central Valley as the filling. 3/5 of the state's farmlands are contained in the Central Valley. The Central Valley from top to bottom is 450 miles long, and from east to west, it's 40 to 60 miles wide. There are two valleys. In the northern part of the Central Valley is the Sacramento Valley, and in the southern part of the Central Valley is the San Joaquin Valley. And one of the most important things, California's capital, our state capital, Sacramento, is located in our Central Valley. Some other things are the bodies of water. Sacramento River and San Joaquin River are both located here. They actually merge together and eventually go to the ocean through the San Francisco Bay. So I kind of made a note over here to the side. Two-Layered Lake is one of the biggest lakes in the United States, which is found in the Central Valley. We have freshwater marshes, and of course, as I stated in my introduction, 20% of the U.S.'s groundwater is supplied through the aquifers in California's Central Valley. So that's a lot of information. So obviously, I'm not going to be able to write about it all. And I want it to read more like a story and less like a report. So I'm going to move this aside now so we can begin. Now, remember that on your slide, you have a list of transition words. These transition words show the passing of time and the organization within your story or essay. So this is the start of our journey. So we should start with, to start with, or first and foremost. Well, I kind of like to start with, or to start my journey. To start, remember that indentation right there. My journey. I head, or headed. Proper noun. I headed to our state capital. Sacramento. Sacramento. I recently figured out that many of you didn't know that our state capital was Sacramento. I actually, when I was first born, lived in Sacramento for about a year and a half of my life, and I visit there frequently, at least as a child. I haven't been there recently, but I do remember quite a bit. So, to start my journey, I headed to our state capital, Sacramento. The first thing I noticed, see, I'm saying this like I'm telling a story, was the vast size of the Sacramento River. The Sacramento River Actually, I'm going to erase river because I'm going to name the two major rivers in the Central Valley, the Sacramento and San Joaquin River. Provide much of the needed water to the farmlands. They both connect to the Pacific Ocean, which I remember as a child when I visited to Sacramento. There was a story on the news about a whale getting caught in the Sacramento River. True story. I remember it. I was visiting and there were tons of news broadcasters and um, environmental companies. They're trying to help this whale to remove it and put it back in the ocean safely. So they both connect to the ocean. So, so they provide the needed water to the farmlands. And so to start my journey, I headed to our state capital, Sacramento. The first thing I noticed was the vast size of the Sacramento River. The Sacramento and San Joaquin rivers provide much of the needed water to the farmlands. The Central Valley is sandwiched. I like that because I get a visual when I see it. Sandwich, smushed between two slices of bread, right? The Central Valley is sandwiched between the Sierra Nevadas, and the coastal ranges mountains. Period. Sandwiched, right? So, not that I'm counting, but I want to make sure I have enough detail about the water, bodies of water, and the landforms in this area. So, I have one sentence, two sentences, three sentences, four sentences. So, not quite enough, right? So, let's also talk about the freshwater marshes and something they call the vernal pools, which are seasonal small ponds, or like they're kind of like marshes. They dry up in the summer and fall, or spring and summer, and then during the fall and winter time, they get all like they're like thin little bodies of water. So they're pools. And there's some really great animals that we can talk about. So I'm going to say the freshwater marshes and vernal pools were damp, green, and filled with life. Life all around them. See, most people, when they think about the Central Valley, they only think about all of the farmland, but they forget that there are areas that have rivers and marshes and vernal pools that have all these wonderful animals like salamanders and snakes. There are foxes and reptiles. There's just swarming with life all around them, and I don't want that to be left out of my story. So I am going to stop right there, but I'm going to reread through it. Sometimes it helps you, like we did with our introduction, if you start out by saying how you want to write it. Because if you remember, we write how we speak. So if you're not sure how to start it, practice saying it out loud before you write it out. So let's read this together. To start my journey, I headed to our state capital, Sacramento. The first thing I noticed was the vast size of the Sacramento River. The Sacramento and San Joaquin River provide much of the needed water to farmlands. The Central Valley is sandwiched between the Sierra Nevadas and Coastal Range Mountains. The freshwater marshes and vernal pools were damp, green, and filled with life all around them. So I am going to stop right there and take a picture of this and add it to my first body paragraph slide. Now keep in mind, if we want to add up more details later, when we go through the revising process, we can add as many sentences to give further details. I might want to go back in there later and give some more details about how the Sacramento River looks, or how it looks to be low in a valley when you have mountain ranges on the sides of you. So we can add those details later when we're revising our story. So If you leave something out, don't stress. We will have time to add it back in later.